Hi guys, it's Mr. Bishop here, just with the second part of our normalization series that we're going through. So we're still looking at some unnormalized data, and what we're going to do is we're going to normalize it using our first normalized form. So just a bit of a revision. First normalized form states that there must be no repeating groups in the table, no single row or record must contain more than one value in a field, which we refer to as a data atomicity, nor will there be more than one column with the same kind of value. So let's get on to that. Now, in the last video, I identified a couple of problems. Hopefully you remember what those problems were. The first problem was that we had Brian, or our names in one field. So our full name in one field. So for instance, we had our first name and our last name in the same contact person field. What I've done over here is, just for the simplicity of it now, I've actually separated these out. So we have a customer or contact first name and a contact last name. And now this data is atomic because we don't have more data than we need to in one field, I guess. Now the reason we need to do this, right, is because sometimes you need to be searching for your contact. And how do you do that? You can search them for your first name or their last name. You can't, if I was to do this, Brian Dawson, search for their last name, can you? You just have to search for Brian Dawson. So if I wanted all contacts with the last name Dawson, I would have to work some database magic and try to extract that information out somehow with a really complicated SQL query. Likewise with John Jones over here. So if it was combined, I would have to somehow extract that out. So what we do is we separate out our first and last name so we can search them. If you have a look, we've done exactly the same thing over with our address, our suburb, and our postcode as well. We often need to search people by postcode, by their suburb, and by their street address. Now, just one thing I have added is a primary key. Remember that one of the definitions for our first normalization form was that there is a primary key. So if you're playing at home, I hope you identified that last video I made a mistake and forgot to include the primary key field over here. So we can see that our customer ID is a unique identifier for the name, the address, the suburb, postcode, and the first name and last name of the contacts. Though that's part of the problem, right? We need to figure out this stuff over here. So now we've split up the first and last name. What we're going to need to do is figure out how we are going to normalize the rest of this data. And what we're going to do, you can do this a couple of different ways. The way I'm going to do it is I'm just basically going to copy and paste some values, and so we have all the data we need in one table. Though there's a completely valid other way of doing this, and this is where you separate the two tables out. And we might try that in a later video. So what we're going to do over here is, because John Jones has the same customer ID as Brian Johnson, they're just two different contact people, we're going to copy these values down. Alright, and same with Poplets Pty Limited, a terrible name. And same with the customer ID for Gears and Sprockets. Let's just extend that out a little bit. There you go. Fantastic. So now we don't have any null values. It's all nice and flat, and it's all nice and neat. But there is a problem. Our customer ID primary key field is no longer a primary key. Now, if you remember back to primary keys, a primary key field is a unique bit of information. So what we need over here is some way to bring the uniqueness back to our primary key. So if we have a look at 123, if we type in, we want to search for our customer ID, 123 now results in two different bits of information. Contact first name for Brian Dawson, and a contact name for John Jones as well, with the same duplicate information. What we're going to do now is what we call concatenating primary keys. So this is where we combine primary keys together to get the unique bit of information that we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to just copy and paste this over here, just so it's really clear. You don't have to do this in the exam or anything. But I'm just going to move the data over here so it becomes really clear of what I'm doing. And we're just going to slot that in. So I'm not doing anything too complicated, just moving the data around. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make a telephone number a primary key. So we have two primary keys. We have a customer ID and a telephone number. And the reason we've done this is because now we're going to get a unique record for every entry in our database. Remember, if I search for customer ID 123, a unique identifying field, I would get two results back. I would get one for John Jones and I would get one for Brian Dawson. I hope that's really clear. What we've done by combining our primary keys is ensure that when we type this information in, we're only going to get one result back. And that result is going to be a combination of the customer ID field and the telephone number for that person there as well. So now we know that that is a unique, or the primary key is a unique identifier. And remember, primary keys must be unique. That's the point of them. And to get that uniqueness, we have to combine two different fields together. What I would like you to think about, maybe pause this video if you can. Say if we didn't have a telephone number, what other bit of information would we use to get that uniqueness, I guess? Well, what other information could you use? What other information could you store? Pause this video or think about it in your own time, and then maybe come back to it later. Alright, I'm going to presume that you've unpaused the video now. So what other bit of information or unique identifying information could you use? So we could use the address, I guess. Hopefully there wouldn't be too many Brian Dawsons living at one address, though you're never too sure. You could also store some other unique identifying information about them. Like, for instance, I don't know, depending on the nature of the business, you might even want to store their driver's license or their credit card number. But remember, there's some really important privacy and ethical reasons why you might not do that. So I would say that the customer ID and telephone number, the combination of these two things is going to give us the sufficient uniqueness we need. So that's, oh, hang on, I just spotted a little bit of a null value that I forgot to copy across. There you go. So, I was just about to wrap this up as well. Idiot. So I hope that that video made a little bit of sense to you, and that's how we normalize something in our first normalized form. We just need to make sure that we eliminate we need to make sure that no single rows or records contain more than one value in a field, nor there will be more than one column with the same kind of value, and that there is a sufficient primary key. And hopefully we've done those things. So thanks very much for listening and watching, and I'll see you in the next video or in class.